when you try and stop something that's a big habit or a big part of your life, then you've got a hole that's, like an empty hole that needs to be refilled with something better. So instead of just focusing on, I've got to stop being like this, I've got to stop doing this bad habit, I would focus on, right, what are positive, easy, fun, enjoyable, healthy habits that I can do to sort of fill that gap, and it end up becoming a healthy addiction, a good positive addiction, because everything's an addiction. It's either one that's driving our life forwards or one that's holding us back.
Welcome back to another episode of Break Out of the Matrix, Boom, the podcast. I'm super excited because I'm here today with my friend Lucie. She is also a fellow manifestation content creator, and we are such good friends offline. And I think that's like super rare to really have such a strong friendship behind the scenes. So I'm really grateful for you guys to hear more about that, hear about how we met, and have her on the show and share her expertise.
Thank you, Giulia. I love you, and I'm so grateful for our friendship. I remember the days when I dreamed of having friends in my life who were entrepreneurial, strong, driven, positive women who, didn't gatekeep and shared everything with each other. And here we are today, recording on your podcast. I mean, life's good. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you, Lucie. I'm so grateful for you. And I think back to the time that we first met because one of my followers had reached out to me and was like, Giulia, I love your content. I love Lucie's content. You guys should do a collab. And we did an Instagram live in like 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we met when you flew over to London. That was fun.
That was so much fun. And we did that video. And oh my God, so many people came to me and were like, I found you from Lucie's channel. And I was like, this is so cool.
Oh, great. That's amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And just so grateful to have you here. So I'd love for you to share with the audience about who you are, talk about how you are the queen of manifesting and wellness and all of those good things.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you the abridged version, so it's not like 29 years long, but the short version of my story is that I was extremely blessed to have parents who actively and deliberately broke out of the matrix themselves just before I was born. A few years before I was born, my parents took a risk on themselves to quit their jobs. Well, actually, Dad has never, in my knowledge, really had a job. My dad's always just been a creative, a musician. He's constantly playing the guitar. If you were to guess where he was, he'd be in his music studio playing his guitar, or he'd be practicing his Tai Chi. So that's my dad's energy. My mom has always been the driven, hardworking, go-getter, breadwinner kind of woman. And she, previously to being her own boss, was a teacher teaching in some really challenging schools in London. And she honestly paid her dues as a teacher for 13 years. Like, she poured everything into teaching. But I don't know if it's the same in America, but teachers are not paid half of what they are worth and the value that they bring to society. So, Mum did enjoy it and did a great job, but then she decided that she wanted to change completely. And by the way, this is more of a story of my mum before I come along, but this is part of my story, right? Because we inherit so much from our parents, and our parents shape us, and then it's up to us to either carry forward those traits or relearn and, break any ancestral patterns and stuff too. But my mum, she actually got married super young to her first husband, who cheated on her a lot, and then she got divorced at the age of around 30. So at that point, all of her friends were married and having children, and she was getting a divorce. And this was before I was even born, but I just think about that. I mean, that's hard for a woman in today's world, but that was in the 70s or 80s, so it was like the pressures and the expectations were even heavier on what a woman should be doing with her life at that point. So she was always going against the grain, doing things differently to the people around her. And she decided when she met Dad, and they went on this like personal development journey, spiritual journey, they let go of their religion, and they like totally just transformed their mindsets and everything. And then they decided to take a leap of faith to start their own business in wellness, in nutrition. So by the time I was born, they were both fully self-employed, working from home. They'd built a really solid structure to their business, so they were able to actually systemize and automate a lot of it. So they were living a life of with a lot of passive income and a lot of time freedom, which they poured into me, their new baby. So mum and dad were in their 40s by the time they had me, their only child, and they just poured everything that they'd learned to do with personal development and the mistakes that they'd made in life and the challenges that they had overcome. And they wanted to teach me that I could do anything, I could be anything. And, you know, I've had my own limiting beliefs and traumatic things that come through life that I've also worked on and had to overcome. But I'm so grateful for that start that I had in life. So that was kind of where it all began for me. Fast forward to my adult life. I decided to follow in my parents' steps and become an entrepreneur. But I had my fair share of limiting beliefs and fear of judgment, fear of what friends would think. Me being this child who was brought up differently and raised differently meant that I did a lot of things. I was like self-expressed in a way that other children thought was weird sometimes. I got teased for being different. So I had my own fair share of blockages where I had kind of stopped being my authentic self to try and fit in. You know, like fitting in was more of a priority to me at that time in my life than just being happy and being myself and living my life fully. So it took a lot of personal development and work and reprogramming my mindset to return back to who I truly am and express myself the way I wanted to do. And I'm still not perfect at it, of course, but that's kind of the journey that led me into the world of manifestation. So back when we met around 2020, 2021, I was fully into manifestation. I'd actually recently had a huge manifestation success story where I wrote down this scripting letter and everything on the letter came true. And one of those things that I wrote on the scripting letter was my content is going to go viral to, you know, a positive audience of people. That was like in the early days of my YouTube channel when I wrote this letter, and that came true, and all of my YouTube videos started to explode. So yeah, that's kind of like a fast forward of how manifestation has played a huge part in my life, how wellness, nutrition, personal development has played a big part in my life. And I owe a lot of it to my parents and to myself. I've done a lot of inner work, and I think it's important to recognize all of the stuff that we do for ourselves behind the scenes to create the life that we want.
That is so powerful and so amazing, because I don't think enough people are talking about like where they come from and in such a positive light. Like, I love the way that you really just highlighted your story, gave us like the behind the scenes, because I know in the world of TikTok and social media today, it's all about, you know, how do I do this overnight? And you're the walking embodiment that you don't. And yes, the letters and the modalities are amazing, but look at all of this work you've done to lead up to this moment. So I think that's really inspiring.
Thank you. I do love a quick manifestation technique, but you're so right. There's so much more to it than that.
I love that. And I would love to hear more about what is your current manifesting routine like? Do you have one? Do you just do it in flow? Tell us more about that.
So scripting is and always will be a favorite technique of mine. And I've probably my most viewed videos on YouTube are different tutorials where I explain literally step by step how the exact scripting technique works that I've used. So scripting is definitely still a part of my daily routine. But also I had a realization a few months ago that techniques why is it that techniques work for some people and don't work for other people? And there's probably more than one answer to that question, but the simplest answer I can think of that probably applies to most people is that if they're trying to manifest stuff from a place that's actually filled with lack and desperation and doubt and feeling crappy, that and stress, like stress is it's a zapper for good vibrations. It's a zapper for health, for mental health, for physical health, for gut health. Like if we're coming from a very dense, low vibrational, lack filled mindset, then you can do all the manifestation techniques in the world. You can also do all the hustling and work in the world, and you're probably not going to end up with the results that you want. So with that, what's the opposite? The opposite is, if you could describe really what manifestation is about that I've learned the long way, is feel good now on the journey to getting what you want. Feel good now in that journey to getting what you want. I used to think that you had to be so dissatisfied with your life that that would motivate you to propel you forward to that next level. But then I realized I could actually trust myself to appreciate life, rest as well as work, find and appreciate the simple pleasures that I have in my life right now, be grateful for all the ways that my life is already abundant right now, even that if that's just like an abundance of drinking water flowing abundantly from my tap or my faucet, as you guys say over there, you know, or like an abundance of oxygen in the air that I can breathe. If we look at all of the ways that our life is already blessed and already abundant, that doesn't stop us from moving forwards towards the next level in our life. If anything, that quantum leaps us so much faster towards what we want, because we're in a high vibrational state of flow, of feeling good, of having the good expectations, of being hopeful, of being optimistic, of expecting the best case scenario. And all of that, our brain will then focus more on those things. We'll spot the opportunities, we'll get the bright ideas, we'll be inspired to take the action. So feeling good now while on the journey to getting more of what you want, I think that if we're looking for a quick fix or a shortcut to manifestation, that's probably as good as it gets.
I love that. Oh my God. I told you guys, Lucie has the best energy. Like just being in your presence, it's just amazing. And I love what you said, because it's true. Feeling is the secret. And Lucie and I were just talking about this before we started recording. You know, we're catching up on our businesses and what's going on behind the scenes. And I was just like, it's all happening so fast and it's so good. And I think one breakthrough I had just from our offline conversation was like, one day you're not going to be the one editing your YouTube videos. One day you're not going to be the one writing your captions. So enjoy those moments now, because you are going to grow. Your success becomes inevitable, right? And even it's slowly happening. Like I'm hiring my content team. I'm hiring and outsourcing and all the things. And I'm not writing some of my captions. I'm not doing some of the things, and you start to miss it. It's so true.
Wow, absolutely. Big girl moments going on right there. But yeah, you're right. You know, especially we call ourselves content creators. That's like one of our hats that we wear, right? And it has the word creator in the name. Mm-hmm. So I do get a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction when I'm creating my content. And occasionally I also get stressed by it or frustrated or burnt out. But it's good to remind myself that actually I wouldn't want it any other way. This is the life that I wanted. You know, even when I was 8 years old, my mum got me a camcorder for my birthday, and I would film everything. I would film little movies with my cousins, and we'd film adverts and music videos, and then I would go to iMovie on my dad's computer and edit it all together. So I've been doing this. Is like my inner child playing, is me creating content.
That's such a good point because I used to do the same. I used to make my mom these like movies for like Christmas and her birthday, and it would be like iMovie montages.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the height of high-tech editing in the noughties.
I love that so much. Lucie, I'd love for you to also share more about how you turned your passion for wellness and manifestation into a business, because a lot of my community and how my content is evolving and expanding is specifically towards conscious creators, people who want to create their dream life by creating their dream business. So walk us through that journey and what that was like for you.
Great question. Well, my wellness journey started actually from not a place of want or desire. It came from actually a place of need, because I'd been neglecting my health. I'd been not prioritizing my health and wellness physically or mentally. This is going back to my early 20s, university. I was partying a lot, drinking a lot. My body was not the picture of health, and it wasn't my priority. I was just focused on having fun with my friends, fitting in with those friends, partying, and just prioritizing my budget on partying and socializing. And at the same time, so my body was taking, it was taking its toll on my body. I started to feel uncomfortable in my body. I started to over criticize how I looked in the mirror. I got into a really negative headspace of, as soon as I looked in the mirror, my eyes would just focus on the parts of my body that I hated, rather than all of the amazing parts of my body that either are beautiful or that work for me behind the scenes every day, just, on autopilot, serving me silently, but I know that that's actually, sadly, a common way to focus on all the areas of ourselves or of our lives or of our bodies that we hate. And so I was so sick and tired of being in a negative cycle where I was hating myself, hating how I looked, and then doing extreme things that had no consideration for my health or wellness, just to try and lose a bit of weight or fit in or control. And, I suppose you could probably even call that disordered eating nowadays. I didn't know that that's what it was then, but that's essentially what I was doing. And it had to get to that point where I was like, I'm so tired. I'm tired of these mental thoughts constantly just hating myself, hating my body. I'm tired of worrying about food all the time. And I'm also, just tired of actually the fact that I wasn't nourishing my body meant that I was more tired. And now I've just recently learned that when we're drinking alcohol, not nourishing our bodies, under stress, eating processed foods, and even things like consuming certain substances or even things like antibiotics, all of those things destroy our gut bacteria. I don't even know about gut bacteria back in those days, but basically our gut needs to have a good balance of billions, if not trillions, of bacteria in it to be functioning properly. And then get this, 95% of where our happy hormones are produced, serotonin, 95% of our happy hormones are produced in our gut if our gut is healthy, if our gut is functioning properly. So is it any surprise that there I was drinking, stressed out, in a negative mindset pattern, and, just neglecting my body, and then wondering why mentally I was struggling so much, and then doing more of the same abusive behaviors, and then wondering why I felt worse. It was like a never-ending cycle of, which came first, the chicken or the egg, but my mental health wasn't helping my physical health, and then my physical health wasn't helping my mental health either. So the two are so connected. Like, I could talk all day about the gut-brain connection now, but I won't go into all of it here. But anyway, I managed to get myself out of that situation. Like I said, my parents actually had been involved in health and wellness and good quality supplements and helping people actually nourish their body. And of course, there I wasn't listening to them. I was just thinking, oh yeah, that's not for me, blah, blah, blah. So it had to kind of reach breaking point where I thought maybe I should actually pay attention to my parents and, you know, follow something that's much more sustainable and involves eating more and involves nourishing my body more and finding balance. And I had to completely rewire my brain, change my relationship with food, change my relationship with my body. I started doing that, by the way. Quick tip, quick little technique that actually helped me to start to love what I saw in the mirror, because it's more mental than it actually is physical. Mm-hmm. Instead of every time I looked at the mirror focusing on the parts of my body that I hated, I decided to retrain my brain to focus on the parts of my body that I liked, or at least that I was okay with. And at that point, the only part of my body that I didn't have a problem with was my wrists. I was like, actually, I have quite elegant, dainty wrists. You know, that's the kind of place I was in mentally. So to just make myself feel better every day, I created a system where every time I looked in the mirror, I focused on my wrists. And what ended up happening, as silly as that sounds, is I started to build a new neural pathway, which was basically look in the mirror and not feel pain, not feel sadness. Look in the mirror and see good. Look in the mirror and feel good. Look in the mirror and see beauty. It doesn't matter that it was just my wrists. I started to build a new connection in my brain to expect to see good rather than bad when I looked in the mirror. Then what you focus on expands, right? And your brain starts to pick up and behave like that more often. Then it started to open up and change the way I looked at myself. I started to notice other parts of my body and my appearance that I liked. And it actually started to expand and grow. And it doesn't mean that suddenly I fell in love with every part of my body, but I changed my relationship with that process of looking at myself in the mirror. And I started to actually, number one, focus more on what I liked rather than what I disliked. And the areas that I wasn't so much of a fan of, it just wasn't as important to me anymore. It didn't matter. It didn't ruin my whole day. So that's a quick brain technique that you can actually use to change how you focus on, you know, you could apply it to looking in the mirror, or you could apply it to anything. So yeah, it wasn't all, you know, it wasn't always like this. It's been definitely a long journey of healing and nourishing and completely changing my relationship with myself.
I love that. This is so empowering because it sounds so connected to what we do for manifestation and our spiritual well-being. It's like building those new neural pathways, creating those healthy habits, starting to change the relationships, because something I struggled with for so long was I would always go on these like fad diets or fad workout plans rather, and then slip back into the same habits. And I'm like, because I didn't change the relationship.
Yeah, so true. It's still coming from a place of not feeling good enough or hating where you're at. And that applies to anything, right? It applies to whether you go for things in business, or I know that you help people a lot with manifesting money or changing their money mindset. I can imagine the same rules apply.
Absolutely. And it's all connected, right? Like, it's so funny because I feel like people will come into our world and they'll think they want more money. They'll think they want the good body. And it always comes back to the relationship to self. They want some sort of feeling within themselves. So if someone's listening right now and they're going down that health route and they're like looking in the mirror and they don't love, I love that technique you shared, but how would you say to start changing your habits in your daily life to actually sustainably be on this journey of long-term wellness, not a quick fix?
Yeah, this is such a good question, because you can't just stop doing something that's essentially a form of addictive behavior, and hating ourselves, depriving our bodies, eating in a disordered manner. They are actually all forms of addiction. And imagine if you were to try and get someone to quit any addiction and just go cold turkey from it. It's like when you try and stop something that's a big habit or a big part of your life, then you've got a hole that's, like an empty hole that needs to be refilled with something better. So instead of just focusing on, I've got to stop being like this, I've got to stop doing this bad habit, I would focus on, right, what are positive, easy, fun, enjoyable, healthy habits that I can do to sort of fill that gap, and it end up becoming a healthy addiction, a good positive addiction, because everything's an addiction. It's either one that's driving our life forwards or one that's holding us back. So I started to surround myself with people who were on the same healthy journey as me. So with the business that my parents started, and then today, this is what I do. We have a healthy community, so that if I'm helping someone get started on a healthier, more sustainable way of eating and living and nourishing their bodies, if they're still surrounded by people who don't subscribe to that new way of living, it's so easy to fall off track and regress. Like I'm sure you've said it before, that you're the average of the people you spend the most time with. So that's why it's so important to, like, how much you join masterminds and you surround yourself with those people who are going to lift you up. So joining a supportive, healthy community was actually one of the first steps that I did. And then actually nourishing my body. So if we are talking about health and wellness still for a second, but it does apply to all areas of life, my body was so deprived of nutrition. And so my new focus was making sure that I was filling in any of those gaps that may have been missing. Because when we're low in vitamins, or we're low in healthy gut bacteria, or we're low in protein, or we're low in good carbohydrates, or we're low in fiber, these are things that make our life more difficult, and make being healthy more difficult, and make our mental well-being more difficult. So I just changed the focus to being, it's going to become my number one priority to make myself feel good and feel healthy. It's actually the best form of self-care and self-respect. You start showing yourself that this body that transports you anywhere around the world that you want to go, this body that silently, obediently is there with you 24 hours a day from the beginning to the end of your life, like, you start showing it some respect, and that it actually is a priority, So definitely surrounding yourself with the right people, nourishing your body. And I help people with this. I help people to pick I often get people when they're at the beginning of their journey, I ask them, okay, talk me through a typical day in your life. Like, be honest, tell me everything that you eat, everything that you drink, everything that you don't have as well. And then from there, I can quite easily see, right, well, they're definitely not getting enough protein. No wonder they feel low in energy. No wonder they're struggling to see any results from their workouts. Or sounds like they're probably super low in vitamins. Or sounds like, if they're struggling with cravings and stuff like that for sugar, for salt, sounds like their body is screaming out for different vitamins. So it can be very simple to just make a few adjustments to what you eat. Usually eat more, and eat more of the right stuff. And then I recommend a few high quality supplements and stuff like that, again, to make it easier to fill in the gaps. The goal with achieving any goal is, how can I make it as easy for myself as possible? And I know that Atomic Habits talks about this with any new habit that you want to start in your life. How can you make it easy for yourself? It's not admirable or honorable to make it really, really hard for yourself. I used to think that to anything worth having in life had to be hard and sacrificial, and you had to suffer. But that's definitely a big part of what I've learned on my manifestation journey. It doesn't just mean sit back and do absolutely nothing and be lazy in life. Obviously take inspired action, but at the same time, how can we streamline? How can we take clever shortcuts? Most people who are achieving the goals that we want to achieve, they're not achieving it because they're motivated 100% of the time. They're not achieving it because they have more hours in the day than we do. They're being smart, and they're prioritizing their priorities, and they're saying no to things that aren't gonna take them to that route as easily as possible.
So powerful and so true. because just coming back to like, it's all connected. And I'd love for you to talk about, I know you started your podcast, which we're going to be recording after, which is so exciting. I'd love for you to really expand on the mind-body connection and how you've been using your experience really like conquering and being the creator of your healthy body, creator of your reality, and connecting the physical health with the mental health and the spiritual health.
They are completely connected. Often if there's something that we're struggling with one, it's useful to look at the other two, like they're kind of three legs of the same stool, right? I mean, the physical health, like I said, prioritizing nutrition, but also the new things I've learned about gut health, I think are still not talked about enough. So I mentioned the probiotics. Every day I take a pre and probiotic to make sure that my gut bacteria is tip top and in balance. And I actually only started doing that consistently as a daily part of my routine, probably a month ago. We're coming up to a month. And in all honesty, I was actually struggling quite a lot mentally before this last month. I felt like the whole of 2022 on paper was the greatest year of my life. 2022, I had breakthroughs in my business. I got married to the love of my life. Obviously, with the world opening up in terms of travel, so grateful for that we're able to travel more. So my husband and I can call him my husband now. It's still new.
I love it. And
my husband.
P.S. Lucie had the most beautiful wedding in the world.
It was a fairy tale, I have to say. Like, I am so happy with it. It was just a dream. I'm not going to hide from that. Yes, it was an amazing wedding. I'm in love with. I can't stop looking at the photos. I'm obsessed.
I love it.
Thank you. So yeah, we had this amazing week-long wedding in Spain, in the town where we met all those years ago. Like, it really was like a fairy tale. And we had a honeymoon in the Maldives, and we literally were on, those huts that float on the water that have the stilts.
I was dying at your pictures. I was like, I'm so freaking happy for you. It looked amazing.
Thank you. But you know what? It's bizarre how when you look at people's social media, you look at people's photos, you see them ticking the boxes that are like a Pinterest board of goals and stuff, and you assume that they must be happier than they've ever been before. And it almost sounds ungrateful, but through a lot of this year, amazing things were happening, and I was like, why can't I fully feel the extent of the happiness that I know I could be feeling in this moment? Like, why am I sat on the sunbed in the Maldives feeling anxiety? Why am I feeling stressed about some of the things that happened in the run-up to my wedding? So one way of looking at it is that, even when you're living your wildest dreams, you're still going to have bad days. You're still going to have things that maybe stress you out. You're still going to have waves of anxiety. And maybe it's unrealistic to think that it's ever not going to be that way. And when you see people's photos on Instagram, you don't see the anxiety or the doubts or the sadness that they might be feeling in any one moment. You just see the polished photos. So that's number one, maybe learning to have more realistic expectations of having the full spectrum of emotions, which is human, it's normal. But also I did feel like there was maybe kind of a cloud over my head in terms of my mental health, where I wanted to be able to fully enjoy and feel happier than I was feeling. And I didn't know what it was, and it was so frustrating. And it wasn't until a month ago when I started really prioritizing healing my gut health and learning about how most of your happy hormones are produced in your gut. So I was like, right, let me actually not just take probiotics once in a while, take my fiber supplement once in a while, and let me make it a daily thing. And I even gave it a name. I was like, I'm going to call this my gut health drink, so that I know that every day when I drink it, I'm taking care of my gut health. And after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the cloud was lifting. I was like, oh my gosh, like I can feel the amounts of happiness that I actually truly want to feel. And I've missed this, and I've been I've been getting frustrated as to why I couldn't feel that happiness during some of the happiest moments of my life. Like I'm not saying I wasn't happy in my wedding, but you get what I mean, right? And I'm sure there's people listening who maybe can relate to it fully. Like you can feel happy, you can feel sad, but there's almost like sometimes it feels like there's something stopping you from feeling as happy as you know you truly could. So for me, it could be different for other people, but for me, I was like, whoa, I had a major breakthrough. For me, clearly it was to do with rebalancing my gut health. And I just feel passionate to share that, because there might be someone listening where they've tried what they think is everything, but maybe they haven't tried that yet. And maybe it could be a breakthrough moment for them as well.
Lucie, oh my God, that is like a huge breakthrough even for me. And I want to know what the gut health drink is.
Well, now it's a big thing. Like I talk about it on my Instagram. I was like, I just shared it passionately and I called it the gut health drink. And then I get people messaging me like, Lucie, I want to try the gut health drink. So yeah, it's become like a major part of my DMs at the moment. Basically, it involves 3 different supplements: a probiotic for the gut bacteria, a fiber supplement that contains both kinds of fiber. So there are 2 types of fiber: soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Mm-hmm. And basically that means that like different plants contain the different types of fiber. But I mean, I read the statistic that on average, most Americans aren't getting even half of the amount of fiber that is recommended. Like that's a chronic thing. So most people aren't getting enough fiber, which it has a massive impact on the gut. Fiber helps things to move in the gut and through the gut and out the gut. And it helps the toxins, the stuff that should no longer, the waste, basically the waste products of the food that we eat, to leave our body. And if we're not getting both kinds of fiber consistently on a daily basis, then that can slow or disrupt the whole process. And most people don't talk about this because they don't want to talk about being constipated or whatever, right? Or super bloated. But this is a thing that affects more than half of the population of some countries. I don't want to say the world because I don't know the statistics, but I know that it affects a lot of people. So probiotics for the gut microbiome. Microbiome is basically the scientific word for the bacterial community, those trillions of bacteria that should be living in balance in your gut. So probiotics for that, fiber for the movement and to make sure we're getting enough fiber per day. And then the third ingredient is an aloe vera based concentrated sort of juice formula, which just basically soothes inflammation. Aloe vera is a super plant. You know, like when you get sunburn and you put after sun on, one of the most active ingredients in after sun is aloe vera, and it cools the burn, it reduces inflammation. So imagine drinking that plant. Imagine what it does to soothe any inflammation that's going on within your digestive system. And basically our digestive system starts at our mouth and ends, we know where it ends, right? All the way down there. And we brush our teeth and we wash the other end, but the rest between the mouth and the other end, you know, might be clogged up, blocked. The lining might be damaged. And so, yeah, you know, it's those 3 things. I'm sure that there's maybe more things, but I found that those 3 things kind of cover all bases of what most people might be lacking in their diet to support their gut health.
Wow. I take a probiotic and a multivitamin every single day. Great. And that's something I've been doing since like 2020, because I have a friend who's really into like health and wellness, and she's like a holistic health coach. And she was like, if you don't want to do anything else, just do these 2 things. And now I'm at the point where I'm feeling a little bit more advanced, and I'm like, I do want to start incorporating more things. So thank you for sharing these recommendations. And it's so big with the spiritual, because even in my life as well, I only started really taking my health seriously in the past like 6 months, because once I actually quit my job, I got so out of routine with working out and eating right, because I got so consumed in my business. And then I realized, like, even on a day like today, right, I am back to back until like 7 p.m. And at first I would be like, there's no time to eat. And now I'm like, I remember looking at this day a couple weeks ago and I was like, ooh, what am I going to eat? Like, what am I going to eat today to really fuel and nourish my body? And that's when you realize you change the relationship and you're not doing things to punish yourself. You're doing things to fuel yourself.
Absolutely. And your body's actually giving you indicators all the time. Like on my busiest days, there's days where sometimes I'm like, oh shoot, lunchtime. And that actually, I'm either hungry, which is an indicator, or even before I feel hungry, I notice that my energy levels dip a little bit. My blood sugar levels have dipped a little bit. And, you know, one option is, oh, I'm just going to grab another Starbucks. Or another option is to go, my body needs more fuel. You know, let's eat some healthy food. Or sometimes I'll even just make myself a quick nutritional smoothie, you know, something that's packed with vitamins, that's going to bring up my blood sugar levels to a healthy level, like low glycemic index, so you don't get a spike of blood sugar and then another crash again. Most people are living on spikes and crashes of blood sugar and insulin. They're having just like either skipping breakfast, living on coffee, grabbing something out and about, you know, grabbing high carbohydrates that give you that, you know, short-term bit of energy and nothing like proteins and things like that. I'm not saying don't have carbs. I'm saying that it's important to find a balance so that you're getting things that give you slow releasing energy. Things like protein gives you slow releasing energy. So just living off skipping breakfast or having just a basic carbohydrate breakfast and then having a crash from that and then having a coffee and then having a crash from that, then having another kind of just sugary snack to boost our energy and having a crash from that. Like that's literally an emotional and blood sugar and insulin roller coaster for the body, and that can also lead to our body screaming out for sugar and more things that will just satisfy. Like we crave sugar. I could go on about this all day. We crave sugar usually because our brain is sending a message, or our body's sending a message to the brain saying something's missing. It might be vitamin B. It might be vitamin C. It might be protein. It might be good carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates. But sugar, I read somewhere that sugar is more addictive than cocaine.
Yes, it's
Right?
true.
It's highly, highly addictive. The effect it has on our brain is huge. So the reason why sugar is so addictive is because it temporarily calms or satisfies those messages in our brain. When our brain is saying, ding, ding, something's missing, ding, ding, give me some iron, please, give me some vitamin this or vitamin that. Unfortunately, our brain then doesn't crave spinach or you know, avocado or whatever. And often if the sugar addiction is something that we're experiencing, our brain will immediately go for, I want some sugar.
Yeah.
Because it satisfies that brain signal, but only temporarily. And then when the sugar wears off, we're in the same place or worse, feeling worse, because we still haven't actually satisfied the root, which needs, you know, the nutrition which is needed. And so that's why sugar can be so addictive. So again, I'm not saying cut out sugar. I never promote cutting out anything, restricting anything, going extreme on anything. It's definitely not the way forward. But when we have an awareness of how these things might be impacting us or might be having a control over not only our body, but our brain too, we can then make more conscious decisions of doing things in moderation, finding more balance, or maybe choosing a healthier alternative in the long run. This isn't me promoting diet culture. This isn't me promoting living an extreme life where you're not allowed to have cake. I love cake just as much as the next girl, you know. But it's about you feeling in a you feeling your healthiest, basically, and understanding how to master fueling your body so that it can perform at its best. Sure, probably so that it looks healthier as well, but that's kind of a byproduct. And most importantly, so that it can live a long, healthy, and sustainable life, and you can get the most out of your life because your vessel is healthy.
I love that. It's like, I'm so fired up about this mind, body, gut connection because it's not talked about enough. And I think the world is moving more towards the direction of let's start the conversation of what's the root of the problem, right? And it's the same in our work, our spiritual work, the physical health, the mental health. What's the root of the problem? And I'm so passionate about holistic health. I'm grateful that I have you in my right corner to hear about these things, hear about how it's all connected. And I'm so grateful that you came on the show to share it with everyone else.
Thank you, Giulia. As you can tell, I could clearly talk about it until the cows came home, as we say in England. I don't know if you guys say that in America.
We don't, but I love that.
Could talk about it till the cows come home, you know. So, but yeah, thank you so much for providing this platform for stepping outside of your comfort zone and deciding I'm going to create a podcast where these conversations can be had. So I love you. I appreciate you so much. And I can't wait for you to be speaking on my podcast next.
I can't wait either. And before we go, I'd love for you to share with everyone where they can find you, if they want to work with you, tell us everything. And of course, I'll include it in the show notes as well.
Great. So my name across all social media platforms is Life by Lucie, Lucie. And that's on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube mainly. So that's how to find me. And the links are usually in the bio for, working with me. And my DMs are always open as well.
I love that. Thank you. So everyone DM Lucie if you have questions, if you want to work with her, if you want to learn more about her. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I can't wait to go and record yours now.
Yay. Thanks, Giulia.